G'day guys, welcome back to SuperCoach with DR and welcome to the Round 3 stock market video. Hope you've had a cracking week so far. Now we are going to keep the intro pretty short for this one because we do have a tight turnaround this week. We obviously had the Easter Monday game between the Cats and the Hawks, and we do have the Thursday night game coming up as well. So very quick intro. We do have a couple of underperforming primos that we need to talk about. Jordan Dawson, you can see there down at the bottom. The man has just lost his ability to kick the football. Don't know what's happening here, but we'll discuss the Dawson pick. If you look right up the top there, we can see a very talented father-son in Sam Darcy. Massively low break even this week, close to a must-have. But again, we know that he can be bevoed at any time. Lob, kick 5 snags on the weekend, so possibly some question marks here. If you look right to the middle, this man, Jack Billings, what a potato. Now, I do apologise because I recommended to bring him in just a couple of weeks ago, but 2 weeks is a long time in football, and all of a sudden, I cannot wait to see the back of this fella. Did absolutely nothing for me on the weekend, so we really need to discuss Jack Billings. A lot of players to discuss this week. I'll be going through over 110 individual players for you guys, so hope you enjoy. Sit back as usual, and we're going to start with the 500k plus defenders. Let's get into it. At the top of the list this week, we have Jeremy McGovern. We called him out in the stocky last week, and the big man delivered again. What a start to the year. 120 points from 24 touches and 11 marks. Most of those possessions were kicks with 19 in total. We always like that. Pretty much the same story as last week. The scoring talent's there, but the durability hasn't been for 4 consecutive years. If you think his body stays healthy, then go for it. But as his price increases, so does that risk factor. So for me, it's almost now or never with the McGovern pick. Lachie Whitfield, pretty popular option this week, fresh off the bye, and playing in his best position off halfback, 108, 118, and a 124 to open the season, puts him in firm calculations for a top 8 defensive average. He's been a burn man for some, durability, that's questionable as well, but when fit and healthy, he is a jet. If you trust his body to hold up, he's a fine trade-in option. The rest would have done him good. He's got low ownership, which could also tickle your fancy. I can definitely see why some people are going there. So I give the tick of approval to the Lachie Whitfield trade if you trust his body. And how's about this man, Nick Velostone? Every year, there's an unexpected player that pops up. In 2024, that man could be Nick Velostone. I said in last week's Stocky that we need to give this man some respect. And this week, he really grabbed our attention and announced himself as pretty much one of the hottest defenders in the comp, SuperCoach-wise. Early in the game, he wasn't doing anything too special, just chugging along. But then he got going in the second and then went bang with a huge second half. 13 intercepts just in quarters 3 and 4. His score was shooting up like a rocket. Talk about a brick wall. Nothing could get past him. 13 marks in total, had 29 touches with 23 of those kicks. Took 5 of 11 kickouts, so getting close to 50% on the monopoly there. He has only had the one failure in 4 games with that 71 against Port. Aside from that, he's banked a 118, 134, and then the 167 last week. That is phenomenal. He's currently the 4th highest averaging defender in the comp and is a real pod with an ownership of only 1.5%. And this is a scary thing. He plays the Saints this week, and it's been well documented that 5 out of the 7 top scorers from the Bombers last week were defenders. The week after, he plays West Coast and then has the bye. So if the bye doesn't worry you too much and you want to go the lone wolf, he actually seems like a fantastic option, but possibly not one to get in if you want to play it a little bit safer. The Shee's another fantastic outing. He has officially stamped himself as a must-have, in my opinion. A consistent all-round performance on the weekend, over 30 touches. One little highlight was in the third where he smothered handball, drilled it inside 50. Think it was to Zerha. Really loved that. Scored 128 SuperCoach points for his efforts and is now the 3rd highest averaging defender. Get him in where you can. I think it's as simple as that. Will Powell, a pot option with a fair bit of talent, had the bye last week, should be fresh. Questionable whether or not he can compete with the top dogs. So personally, although I love him as a player, I will be passing for now. Hayden Young, of course, he comes out and kills it when half his owners jump ship, always on the cards, and very, very frustrating. Looked like a completely different player this week, and for the first time in regular season anyway, a consistent game. His disposals are actually hitting targets. 15 touches, 7 contested at 80% efficiency in the first half to be sitting on 50 points. I just knew it would happen, on the same points as Luke Ryan. Then has a massive second half to finish on 132 SuperCoach points from 32 touches, 7 tackles, 8 clearances. Left his butcher's knife at home this week for a bit of a change. If you held strong, well done, but what a turnaround. Been a nightmare pick for many. As a non-owner, and I hate to do this, but I'm just really betting against him at the moment. I would hate to see, it sounds terrible, doesn't it? But I'd hate to see this bloke go really well. If I take the selfish SuperCoach hat on, I do hope that he has a real breakout season, but that would be super frustrating because, I did bring in this next man. Luke Ryan, he was my trade-in for Young this week, and to be honest, you can't be too disappointed, can you? I was watching this fella like an absolute hawk, cheering on every possession. Halfway through the first, Young was on more points, which is typical, which, I was almost expecting, to be quite honest. You really do. He was a little bit sloppy at stages, so getting on to Luke Ryan now, a little bit sloppy. Gave a free kick away for high contact, then butchers the ball out on the full. But my favourite piece of play was with the third kick into the game. Ryan boots it 55, 60 metres down the middle of the ground to Fife, which was just poetry for me as owners of both players. End up in a goal, and with 7 touches, 6 of those kicks for 33 points in the first. Really solid and really just kept going from there. Good courage, filling in the hole early in the second. Was really made to earn that, but ended up as a contested inset mark, so lovely for points there. The ball lived in Freo's forward half for most of the second, so it was hard for him to impact. Then to start the third, his scoring seemed to stop. I was getting really worried. Young's score was rising rapidly, and Ryan was just a little bit stagnant. Was actually down on his halftime score for a little while there after dropping an easy mark. They go down as clangers. But to start the last, Freo started playing that chip style, and that got Luke Ryan into that 6 sort of mode that he does. Picked up 9 touches, 8 of those were kicks at 100% efficiency. Also took 5 marks as well. Ended up on 130, which was brilliant and pretty much looking like a must-have at this stage. It does hurt so much to see Young just outscoring, but as I mentioned before, you just really can't complain with the Ryan pick in isolation. Dan Houston had a very quiet start to this game, only 10 points to his name at quarter time, but then got into it as he always does, kicked a big bomb from 50 with about 4 minutes left on the clock in the second quarter, which was nice. Had 9 kicks in that quarter alone, and that's why we love the pick. Has such a lovely leg on him, just so damaging with ball in hand. He was getting some work done on his hip about 5 minutes into the third. The commentator was saying that every time they pushed down on it, he was wincing with pain, but he did come back on, only finished the game with 18 touches. So was that possibly a factor? Maybe. Did lay 5 tackles to raise that floor, but still managed to score a 105 at the end of the day. So for me, that's a good sign in a quieter outing than usual. Possibly a couple of others ahead of him in that pecking order, but looks set to have the game to produce a top 6 defensive average this year. I really love the Houston selection. Tommy Stewart was initially starting on a wing, then drifted back to be that 7th man in defence. Really benefited early from some shocking Hawks turnovers. They were just kicking it directly to him. Seemed like Sam Mitchell was just happy for him to do as he pleases again after embarrassing the Crows last week. Got a little bit heated just before halftime with Ginnivan, but really just cruised his way to a 70-point first half. I thought, here we go, I'm in trouble again, but a very quiet third quarter. Actually went down into the rooms to have an HIA after a knee to the back of the head from Cho in a marking contest. Came back on though and ended up with 99 points. He was set for a monster here, so pretty lucky for non-owners. A safe as houses pick, an uber elite defender. Just feel free to bring him in whenever. Sicily had the opposite start to last week. I think Ollie Henry may have been playing a bit of a defensive role on him, but only had 2 touches in the first quarter. But as you can, really stepped it up in the second for a 45-point quarter, but only finished on the 89 points for the game. So apart from that spike quarter, not a lot to show. He'll continue to go down in price. You'd think that break even certainly isn't out of reach for him, but one I think we just sit back and continue to monitor pretty much with the same with Sinclair. It's an easy weight, going to drop in price, and one we just keep in the watch list for now. And Nicky Dacos. Some are saying that the Dacos dump has worked out in the short term for those that went that way. But lucky for those that stuck fat, he did junk it up in the last quarter. Things weren't looking great for most of the game. And something does seem off with him, but he still managed to get his way to 30 disposals and register a half respectable, yet disappointing score for what we expect of him of 112. It's easy for now. If you're sold, you'll wait until he's buy and most likely find a way to bring him in. If you're held, you are without doubt holding this week and just hoping that he comes good quickly. I'm not an advocate of trading him out, certainly not this week if you've already held him. Those that are thinking of it, I wish you all the best of luck, but I just don't think it's going to be an overly solid move. On to the defenders, 250 to 500k, and the man up the top, Massimo D'Ambrosio, didn't have much of an impact on the game early. Standard, but I trade him in. Floated forward in the second quarter, had a set shot from around 40 out, but fluffed his lines. Was only on a mid-20s score at half time, so that was a killer. And that's where he stayed on the stat sheet for the rest of the half. 25 points, and I was sure I jinxed him. Played fat side of the wing, but then in the third gets 4 early touches. I think it was about 3 minutes to get himself into the game. Then slowed again, sort of in and out. Finished on 68 points from 16 touches, but again, made some nice coin. Hopefully that's more of a floor game. Most people I know have traded him in either last week or the week before, so all good, but the ship has certainly sailed now. Lockie Bramble, Angie's man, shout out to you again, mate. Gave you a shout out last week, but a bigger shout out because, wow, what a pick he has been. Another really solid game. He's making some fine cash at the moment. Collected 27 touches at 88% efficiency for 98 points on the weekend. That's an awesome return for investment. Playing a really friendly role and safe with the ball in hand. One that was not on my radar pre-season, but if you took the punt and traded him in last week, week before, again, it looks like a fine decision in the short term anyway. A pod selection, and kudos to owners. The next man is not pretty reading. Ouch. If you trade in Windy this week, it was a disaster. A lowly score in the 50s and now being rubbed out for a week. If only you could go back in time with this pick. A real stinger, particularly in a non-bye week if you're already carrying some defensive donuts. So I've got the Muppet symbol on there. It's never good to see that next to your player's name in the stock market video, but unfortunately, it is next to his name this week. And even though CBAs went down as well. So if you jumped on Windy, very bad luck there. Really, really hurts. Jordan Clark, the opposite to Windy. This bloke is on fire and was on fire to start the game. Showed some great intent early. Nice holding the ball tackle and drilled a lovely pass to Aish inside 50. He was just using the ball so well. Had 7 touches at 100% efficiency to lead all scorers for Freo at quarter time with 35 points. And then just kept on going. Ended with 26 touches at 88% efficiency. That's fantastic. And he added another 100 plus score to his 2024 resume with a 119. As you can see from the symbol, currently in the top 6 for defensive averages. Remember that his average did creep up to I think it was around the 98 to say 102 mark from memory when Young switched into midfield late last year. So maybe this was a sign that we should have seen coming. A smoky for a top 8 and definitely one for the Lone Wolves. Could be a massive pod, Jordan Clark. Wang Dean Miller, solid without being spectacular, 20 touches for 91 points, a lower disposal count than usual, but to see him get to a 90 plus is positive, an next-gen breakout type pick with a load of potential. If you purchased him last week, you may have been slightly underwhelmed, but I think he should be solid. If he ups last week's disposal count by, say, 3, then I think he hits triple figures. Most of those disposals will hit the target, so still a really nice pick, I think, Wanganeen Miller. Elliot Yeo, I've got the average Joe symbol on him because that's pretty much what he's giving us. An okay average at the price, but not really competing with the big boys. Has the role, but always has durability concerns. I don't see enough upside to be considering Yeo as a trade-in option at the price, but you'd be happy enough as an owner. Jaden Shaw, Man, oh man. It would be a really easy decision if he didn't play St Kilda this week. I do have the sell symbol there. The only thing, legit, the only thing that he's got going for him is the fact that he's playing the Saints this week, because it's been well documented, as I'll mention over and over again, that St Kilda leak defensive points. Look at what the Essendon defenders did last week. Aside from that, it's pretty much all downside. He was unsided early, just 4 disposals in the first, going at 50% efficiency. Started the second quarter on the pine, only registered 3 kicks for that quarter. At halftime, 7 touches for 22 points. An absolute coach killer. End up on 60 points, so a slight comeback. But the data suggests that he's pretty much a must trade. A really disappointing start to the year. And if you went with him as a pod, you'd be kicking yourself now. Look, there's certainly arguments to keep, but in my opinion, I just think it's time to get out of Dodgeville. In saying that, be prepared for him to score maybe a 120 this week, but I think it's going to be fake gold. I think you just cut your losses. On to some cheaper options now. Time to look at the defenders under 250k. At the top, we've got Charlie Dean. He's been sitting here for a couple of weeks now. Had 19 touches in the VFL in a solid outing, but job security is certainly an issue and needs to force his way back into the side before we consider him. That's why you see the no job security symbol there. Tommy Brown didn't have a fantastic start to the game, it's fair to say, ending the first quarter on -2 points, but it could only go up from there, and it did. A better second, but only on 14 points at halftime. Had a much better second half, registering 46 points to reach a respectable score of 60. Really saved it there. On the bubble this week, and with some defensive injuries, he's a realistic option. Last week had the 10 touches, 5 marks, and some 1%ers. An already slightly elevated price is slightly frustrating, and the Tigers do have an upcoming bye, which they share with Melbourne. Howes and Hoare are in lots of teams who they are obviously going to share with, and some still have your Reid, Caulfield, Gibcus types, so it may be hard to carry another defensive bye player from that week, depending on your personal situation. If you are downgrading in defence, he's one of 2 options that you look to go this week. The other bloke is a talented player from Freo by the name of Joshua Draper. Now, I went to the best men when it comes to Freo for advice. My man Damo from the Footy Mailbag and Dan Mashman, aka Freo Tragic. After scoring 35 in his first game, I wasn't too interested, but a 68 last week puts him in the mix for sure. So, according to my man Damo, now he says that he thinks he'll play as long as Cox is out, but thinks he may only be good for around 40 per game, may have a couple of spike games, but won't be a huge money maker. But he's a warm body if someone needs him. But Damo thinks there may be better options that will come along eventually. Questions over job security slightly when Chappie is ready, but still doesn't think that Chappie necessarily pushes Draper out. So thank you very much for that, legend. Much appreciated. It looks like if you're looking to trade in a bubble boy this week, you've got your 2 options there. Do you go with Brown, possibly higher scoring potential, or do you go with Draper, an exciting type player, possibly a fun player to own as well at a cheaper price? That one's really up to you, but both I've got the buy now symbol on, and both are obviously on the bubble, so a bit of a tough decision, maybe a little bit team dependent here. See how you go, but it's got to be most likely one of the 2. Bodie Ulan, job security looks okay. Would have enjoyed the rest last week, but for me, the ship has probably sailed here after his first price rise. No real need to go there. Mullen is on a bubble this week again, but again, probably better options to go with. Scored a 29 and a 59 last week. If you rate the talent, you could go there, but I'm passing. Toby Pink. Well, we joked on the Swordplay potty that if you brought Pink in for, say, a Caulfield, you replaced a dead rookie with another corpse here, because Toby Pink's first 10 minutes were utterly horrendous. He and Caleb Marchbank were having a competition this week to see who could get the highest into the negatives. A deliberate free kick against, gave away a 50, gave her a free kick for an arm around McKay's shoulder in a marking contest. This is all very early on, and halfway through the first, he was on -10 points, if you don't mind. Then, when I didn't think things could get worse, He gives away a free kick to Curnow about 20 metres out. He was simply smashed on the day. Actually felt a little bit sorry for him. Well beaten by his opponent. It was tough. North got smashed, and being a key defender for the Roos, that's not an easy job, is it? End up scoring 19 points, which will now hold his cash gen. Still money to make, obviously, but that really does hurt in the short term. Bad luck, Toby. Surely he's just got to go up from last week. Zilliams probably hasn't lived up to expectations. I thought he had a solid enough game, but unfortunately just didn't get enough of the pill. Only 15 disposals. That included 3 kick-ins. Did go at 86 efficiency, though, which was nice. Did a couple of nice things. Laid a great tackle. Won a free kick for holding the ball. That stood out to me. But aside from that, no real highlights from memory. He'll make cash slowly. We know he's a lock for the best 22 each week. So I'm happy enough with him for now, and I'll be just holding for the foreseeable future anyway. Marty Hall didn't set the world on fire, but did make us a little bit of coin, which was nice. I'm not sure when May returns, but as soon as he does, his job security is at risk, which is why you see the symbol there. Also being a sub, so that's a concern. When he does get back, or if he does get back, he'll certainly be one of those slow burn cash gen type players. And with a bit of a late update here, news has come through that he is now out for 3 to 4 weeks with a thumb injury. So I would have the injury symbol there, but I'd already prepared these slides before that came through. Late news through to the desk. So unbelievably, we have another rookie defender down. You just would not read about it. Blake Howes, this is not what we wanted for our cash gen. A negative 10 point second quarter. It's a bit of a theme, isn't it? Negative 10 points with these defensive rookies, but that saw him sitting on 0. Absolute duck egg at half time. Finished with 7 touches for 26 points in a night to forget for the young man. Now officially a slow burn, and has really halted his rapid growth for now. Super disappointing, and not what I needed at all. On to the midfielders, 500k plus, and to be honest, a couple of unlikely names are sitting at the top of the list this week. Right at the top, we have Willem Drew, a very solid footballer, this bloke, tagging Oliver at times, and a bit of a midfield bull. Even when playing a defensive role, he can still find the ball. 25 touches with 13 of those contested on the weekend. Also laid a massive 11 tackles. The best of both worlds in a way. I could not do it myself, but he's a massive pod, has a great buy, and a big lone wolf move here. If you go there, all the best of luck. I won't be joining you though. Warpool, again, having a red hot start to the year, but at his price, I couldn't go there. I can't see him continuing to put out an elite average. Maybe I'm underselling him, but surely we go elsewhere, even though the break-even is friendly with a 62 there. A man with an identical break-even in Matt Crouch, for some reason I just like a lot better. You can see the welcome mat symbol there as he enters a new price bracket this week. Always good for owners to see that Matt in the stocky. Panic stations early for owners last week though. He was absolutely unsighted in the first. I mean, literally unsighted. The bloke had 47% TOG in the opening quarter. We all know that his TOG is generally low, but damn, not that low. Only 10 points with a couple of handballs and a tackle. But then, boy oh boy, he got the first clearance in the second, and next minute he collected 7 touches in the next 7 minutes and was quickly on 40 points. His hot run continued, and then by the end of the second term, he was leading all scorers for Adelaide with 69. The bloke had close to a 60-point quarter. What a freak. Did have 14 touches in the second half, but very handball happy, and only had the 2 kicks. Ended up on 110, which is fantastic after what he produced in the first, but he may be a little bit disappointed in the way that he finished, only scoring 41 points in the second half. If you truly believe that he can continue to average what he is, then you can trade him in. But for me, the ship is sailing, and it may be time to focus on some uber primos. If you started him or even traded him in last week, you'd be happy. If you're still keen on Matty Crouch, this is absolutely the last week where I'd go there. After this week, I just don't see any type of value, and you've left your run too late. So Crouch in this week, possibly. You should have probably gone last week though. Jack Steele, the man, is back on from the start again, just doing the little things, tackling well, had a great run down tackle in the first, which led to a goal. really on defensively. Almost 30 touches, 7 tackles for 126 points. I think he's legit, back to his best, and certainly has a chance of a top 8 to 10 midfield average. It may be a very big call, but at his price, that's good enough for me. He doesn't look like giving you Butters or Sarong type ceiling scores, but one that looks reliable to give you 120. I'm a big fan. Wish I'd started him, but I think he's officially back to the Man of Steel. Tuki, fresh off the bye, looking back to last week, only had the 3 touches in the first, but 4 tackles to go with that, sitting on 25 points at quarter time, playing a bit more forward of centre at times, but then really worked his way into the contest, got his tackle game on, finding plenty of the peel. Probably the best and quickest hands I've seen this season. It was inside 50. As soon as he got the ball, was tackled by Treloar, got it off instantly to Swallow for an elite goal assist. He hit triple figures at 3/4 time. Only 5 touches in the last to finish on a 115, but all in all, a very solid game. If you think he can be a top 10 averaging defender, then feel free to bring him in. There's been a lot of questions this week already. Steele versus Touk. It's a really, really tough one. You know, Steele is obviously the number 1 man at the Saints. Touk is the best two-way runner in the comp. Just works so hard. Not saying that Steele doesn't, but Touk is just on another level when it comes to that. So I think just take your pick here. I'm leaning towards Steele, even though Touk, the trademark, is my favourite non-Lions player in the comp. It's a tough one. If you got both of them, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world either. If they can get back to those 120 averages, which they both achieved in the same year from memory, then they'll be fantastic selections and legitimate top 8 options. A lot of competition at the price. So, Matty Rao, so good to see this bloke playing some of his best footy. The weapon, as Abs has labelled him this year. In his last match before the bye, had a quiet start with 4 touches in the first, but got going as the game went on, finishing with 25 touches, over half contested, as we expect. 8 tackles, 6 clearances. Didn't quite reach 100 with a 99, but we can still stomach that. It was such a tantalising matchup looking back on that game against Libba. Seeing the 2 Bulls go at it was awesome. Scores of 137 and 155 before this game were elite, but came down to earth slightly here. First game away from home, playing some tougher opposition, so we can't expect those monster scores to continue every week. Still a few question marks for mine, but certainly in the mix for a top 10 average this year, and good to see his outside game is also starting to improve. Zachy Butters, bit of a fall from grace this week, more like it, after his monster in round 2. Only the 7th time in the last 4 seasons where Zach Butters has scored less than 10 points at quarter time. This was looking pretty bad, to be honest, and I was worried that he'd struggle to get to the 75 mark, but disaster was avoided, almost managed to climb his way to triple figures. He also got scaled very harshly for this game, and from memory, he was originally on 107, lost 9 points, which was frustrating. This week has a nice matchup, though, against Essendon at the Adelaide Oval. I'm expecting a much hotter start from Zach, and he is in the mix as a VC option for me. Will likely make money again this week, but when that ceiling score drops out, his price will fall again. One I would probably look to wait on, but in saying that, if he can score another monster this week, it will very much be a different story and could very much become out of reach. So, yeah, up to you on the Zach Butters selection. Just glad that I own him myself at this stage. Caleb Strong had a quiet start. It's pretty common with some of these players that I've been talking about. Only 3 touches in the first quarter, with one of those a direct turnover. Had new owners very, very nervous here. The flavour of the week had suddenly turned sour, but that didn't stop him. They didn't actually start him in the middle to open the second, but within the first 10 minutes, he'd collected 10 touches and he was on 44 points. Then just continued on his merry way, finishing on 125. What a player he is. I'd love to have been able to jump on him last week, but just had other priorities. I was looking to even start him this year. I've got the Uber and the buy now symbol there because he's really stamped himself as one of the elite scorers of the game. The issue is that you're paying up a little bit more now, and you may use the cash elsewhere if you go for a cheaper option, depending on your personal situation. But a fantastic trade-in is Caleb Strong. Lachie Neale, my man, is one of the Lions players that can hold his head high after last week's performance. 35 touches, 20 of those contested, 10 clearances, kicked a goal. Not much more you could have asked from the captain, and to add to that, he's playing sore. So a super effort from Lockie, and a lot of respect for him. Given the fact the Lions are playing like a bottom four side, and as I mentioned, he is playing sore, it is a pass for now, but definitely one to watch. We know what numbers Lockie Neal can produce when he's on. And to finish off the first slide in this range, Noah Anderson had a decent start to the season, was on fire early in his last game against the Doggies before the bye. 11 touches, 10 of those kicks in the first, 7 were contested, had a couple of tackles, 3 clearances, missed a snap on goal, so some points lost there, going really well. However, he was going at just 27% efficiency. He scored 45 points for his efforts that quarter, but he left a 60-65 easily on the table there. Started off the second quarter well, was one point in time where he even crumbed his own kick. Things are going that well, but didn't do a lot for the rest of the match, only finishing on the 98 points. So when you've got your Rouse, your Millers, 2 teammates, even Flanders, who we'll talk about later, Anderson for mine is a bit of a skip, just for now. On to the next slide, and Zeret is on a really red-hot run, a lovely 130 score. Will be close to a must-have when his fixture opens up, so if you want to jump on early, I think that's fine. 30 touches, almost half contested, and 6 tackles on the weekend for 131. It's exactly what we're after, and he's delivering in spades. A very safe pick with a huge ceiling that remains a relative pod. A lot to like about this pick, and firmly on my hit list as an upgrade option soon. He comes in to a really nice fixture, plays the Eagles twice, has North in that run. It's looking really nice for Zeret. Performing well, really looking nice for a top 8 average at this moment. Errol really started off slow again this week. A little sloppy early, dropped chest mark, a few fumbles, which is very un-Errol-like. Only 4 touches, but to make it worse, only 1 of those are effective. Only 5 points in the opening quarter. Got a little bit more of it to start the second, but another shocker. At halftime was on 10 touches at 60% for 24 SuperCoach points. Did have close to a 50-point second half, but only 73 points in total, and has certainly been a roller coaster. He's one to monitor, jump on at the right time. That's if we're even confident enough in his scoring. Track didn't quite get to triple figures on the weekend, but looking good nonetheless. One of those blokes you can just trade him whenever the time is right. We're pretty confident that he'll continue to pump out elite scores for us this year. Not a lot of discussion needed for now, though. Same as Rory Laird, just continuing on with his solid form. Nothing spectacular, but getting the job done every week. Got the death symbol there for him. Very solid. Libba, my man Spills. He isn't happy. If you've checked out the Sword Play potty, you would have heard his rant. Fed up. He's trading him out this week. Poor Libba. It's not his fault now. Apparently he was a little sore and Bevo decided to manage him, aka Bevo him. In fairness, it sort of made sense if he was sore, given the scoreline, but man oh man, it was finally on pace for a decent score and it was taken away when he was subbed out at 3/4 time. Received some positive scaling as a slight positive, but non-owners have a big decision to make. I'm scared that if you trade, he comes back and starts to lift again, but if you've seen enough and the sub out was the last straw, then I don't blame you. Nothing's going right for Libba, but the question is, can he turn the corner soon? It's a question that we would all love to know the answer to. Bad luck with Libba owners. Rosie, another just to put in the watch list. Scoring isn't fantastic at the moment, but there'll be ceiling gains to come. Just a talented player, but just watching him for now, I think. Same as Dunkley, just is not producing premium numbers, and we've got no real reason to bring him in at the moment. 28 touches isn't bad, 11 contested, 6 tackles against the Pies. It's an okay outing, but 96 points won't do the job in our midfields. One to simply monitor, and as a Lions man, I hope we see the best of him very, very soon. Mr. Bontempelli. Now, even when Bevo tries to Bevo him, the Bont still manages to find a way to dominate in his own way, playing a lot of time up forward, only managed to gather 16 possessions, which is around, half his typical output. Did come out of last week's game with some slight ankle concerns, even a slight knee issue, it was said, but still managed to do what he could for the side, even when his CBA rate was down. Only 57% that CBA rate after averaging 85% over the first 2 games. So he's losing around 30% there. But up forward, did end up kicking 3 goals, took 4 contested marks, laid 8 tackles, which was a very admirable performance. Hopefully he's rested up this week. A 110 is not fantastic, particularly if you had him as a captain, but very, very nice nonetheless. Ready to step back in the midfield, hopefully, and give us some nice captaincy scores. Clary, now, not the Clary of old, but I'm not writing him off yet. Going down, down, down in price, and could be the ultimate fallen primo. The buy should do him good, provided he's a good boy and comes back and just goes bang. Already an all-time SuperCoach Hall of Famer. We're yet to see close to the best of him in 2024, but I think we certainly get the binoculars on him. If you are after some sort of a radical move and you are a big believer in SuperCoach history, he's coming up against Adelaide this week. Do yourself a favour. Check out his scores against the Crows. There is something about Oliver v. the Crom. And I tell you what, if you've got him, if you're one of the few owners, I've got him in a keeper draft, chuck the captaincy or the vice captaincy on him, because this is a week that you want to own Clary. Not in his current form, but opposition. He's licking his lips, loves playing the Crows, does this great man. LDU, well, some are calling him LD Spew after his performance last week. Had a very tough day at the office with Hewitt keeping him company at times, along with Hollands. Didn't get any space or free run. Got a few cheap possessions in the latter stages of the second quarter when Hewitt was on the bench. Then had a big third quarter with 12 touches and thought a comeback maybe on the cards, but had a head clash with Cherry right on the 3/4 time siren. Lucky not to be concussed there. Fast forward to the final siren, ended up with a lowly 67 points with 6 Muppets. A tough watch for owners, and seems like other players are stepping up more in that midfield. He doesn't have the whole pie to himself now, and this may be something to factor in, but as an owner, and I'm not an owner, but for owners, I'd still back him in. He scored well in round 1, was okay in round 2, still hit a triple figure score then, so there are positive signs. If you want to trade and you've seen enough to suggest that your money is better invested elsewhere, then go for it. But you'd hate for him to come back strong. And while we're talking about North, I haven't included him in the stocky, but George Wardlaw, he's just an absolute beast. Didn't look like he'd come back after copping a knock. Looked really sore with some sort of a leg issue, but did come back on, made an impact, ended on, I think it was 79 points from memory, but just wanted to say he'll be a future animal of the comp, that fella. Yeah, shout out to you. A fantastic player is Wardlaw. And lastly, on to Jordan Dawson. I just don't know what to say. How does one simply lose their elite kicking skills? It's hard to fathom. It's been suggested that part of it may be due to the lack of forward connection. Things just aren't working there at the moment. Let's be honest, the midfield isn't really working, are they? We know Adelaide's forward line is struggling, but surely it can't just be down to that. As I said, I don't really have the answers. He's still scoring okay in fantasy, but in SuperCoach, poor ball use produces bad scores, and he's relied on good ball use to give him those really nice ceiling type scores. So in absolute no man's land here, his first touch really summed it up. And the quote from Jared Healy, I've got written down here, was insufficient intent or insufficient skill. Without a doubt, it was the skill that let him down. We just don't associate that with this man. Things did get better for a little bit. There were rumours that Young was going to tag him, but no sign of that early, and he had a fair bit of space. Collected 9 disposals in the first, which is good, but the efficiency still wasn't great at 67%, but not the worst. But then things got really bad. Here are his next 3 quarters. 5 touches at 40%, 7 touches at 43%, and 6 touches at a miserable 33% in the fourth. It's just, what do you say? So out of those 5 touches in the second, 2 of those are effective. Out of his 7 in the next quarter, only 3 of those are effective. And out of the 6, only 2 in the fourth. Just jaw-dropping from a bloke who I rate as one of the best kicks in the comp. It may have now come to a point where you just need to jump ship, if you didn't already last week. Without rubbing it in, I'd be licking my lips as a non-owner and just keeping an eye on him. He's dropping cash quickly, has the potential to be the ultimate fallen primo pick in a few weeks or a month or whenever he gets back to his best. And I'm sure there will be a time. he starts to clean up that kicking. But he just needs to get that. He just needs to get those kicking boots on. It's a super awkward situation. As an owner, though, if you think things won't improve extremely quickly, I think it may be time to show Jordan the Dawson. On to the midfielders, 250 to 500k. And at the top, we have Jared Lyons. A real tough one for mine. Omitted from the side last week, but another poor performance from the Lions and Dev Rob having quiet eating may see the door open for JL again. If he's named absolutely 100% hold, even if he's a sub, you could simply leave him on your bench, allow him to make some money for the week. His break even is negative 39, so you're guaranteed to make some coin even with a zero there. Did have 33 touches in the VFL, so he's knocking down the door. If he's not named, then you've got a decision on your hands. This one will have to go down to the last minute when the team sheets are released. A very awkward position to be in. Roberts was a little shaky early, dropped a chest mark, terrible clanger when he kicked it across the ground to try to find McCartan, lucky to get away with a high free against Taranto, but apart from that, tick, tick, tick. Here we go, mate, what a selection he's been. Find the peel with these, end up with 9 touches in the first quarter for 30 points. In the second quarter, showed courage, set up a high ball by, who was it? It was Tom Lynch. Tom Lynch absolutely smashed him with a knee to the ribs. So showed a lot of courage to actually sit under that high ball. Really tough kid. Got up a few seconds later. Bombs it inside 50 to Grundy, who almost marked it. Then a lovely inside 50, close to the siren for a Robbie Fox mark. And then goal. That was a super kick from Fox as well. Gave the Swans some momentum going into halftime. 59 points for his efforts, which was perfect. Had another solid effort in the second half, almost getting to the ton, finishing on 98 points from 28 touches. So I'll take that every day of the week. Just a 2 kick-ins, so good to see he doesn't have to rely on those and can find his own ball. Just a ripping selection here, and I've got the moneymaker symbol on him. A lot of cash to make, and best of all, a fantastic on-field scorer for us at the same time. McKercher had a shaky start, similar to Roberts in the first 5 minutes, almost cost him a goal by not keeping his feet and attempted spoil. Luckily, Scott had his back and left his man to create a ball up. That was a really good play by Scotty. Not long after, though, McKercher tackled Hewitt high, kicked a goal. The intent was there, which was good, but again, a little bit sloppy, but the next 5 minutes he showcased his skills, some really precise touches, and at the end of the day, he scored 74 points from 19 touches, which is his lowest score for the season, but far from a disaster. We can't expect 90 plus scores every week. He's going to continue to be a good money maker. I've got the same symbol as Roberts here, maybe not as much as Roberts. He's just playing out of his skin at the moment, but an elite talent, a nice role. Field him each week and just enjoy the cash rise while you're at it. Riley Bonner. What do you say about this game? Well, you can't deny he got a heap of the pill, and that was great. However, he broke the record for the most turnovers in a single game since 2012 with 17. Talk about a score killer and a bit of a coach killer. Rossi boy didn't seem happy at the end of the game. Talked about a lack of composure, lack of ball use. Is he in trouble? I'm not too sure. But if he keeps his spot, it's a win for those who stuck fat. I really don't know what to make of the pick, but he deserves a butcher sign this week. That's why I see it there, because his foot was off by 8 mile. He kicked the ball 29 times, so if more of those hit the target, this could have been an absolute monster. So definitely one to monitor and see how he goes. But yeah, I don't know if he's even going to keep his spot after the way he used the ball. It's going to be a big watch. Wait and see. I don't ever want to talk about this fella. Nick Martin. Alright, well, what he did was he slapped previous owners in the face and kissed those on the lips who held strong. Collected lazy 44 disposals, was on track to set records. It was making me absolutely sick. Brad Scott also mentioned that he was really impressed with the way that Nick Martin defended. Now, to my eye, I really didn't see it that way, but my opinion means nothing. I was just watching on the TV. Scotty's obviously the coach, knows a lot more than me, and his assessment is much more important than mine. So, without a doubt, the role continues. Tim Mitchell tweeted an amazing stat that Nick Martin has played 300 out of a possible 318 minutes this year. What an elite tank. Actually went at 75% efficiency this week, which seems decent for him. A few turnovers, but nothing like we'd seen in terrible weeks. Did have a terrible turnover with like a 10-metre kick across the goal that missed Serrett. Came up, my man, shout out to you, buddy. Picked it up, snapped the goal. Had 25 touches with 7 minutes to go in the second quarter. The Saints were kicking that badly, and he was cashing in. Took almost half of Essendon's kick-outs for more easy touches. But if a player usually gets 44, you'd be hoping for a 150 plus at a minimum. He didn't do that, but still no complaints with the overall score, and probably salty on my behalf, I think. The scoring pattern is going up, 63, 93, that's a plus 30, and then all the way up to a 136, which is a plus 43 from that previous week. I still wouldn't trust him as a trading option, but without doubt, you don't trade him if you own him. That's very obvious. He's actually looking to make cash now in the short term. You wouldn't believe it. I'm just so spewing with this bloke. I'm not talking about him anymore over Nick Martin. Let's talk about George Hewitt. His first 5 minutes were insane on the scoring chart. Different to some other players we've talked about so far. In that time, he had 3 effective contested possessions, 2 clearances, a free kick, and a goal, a lazy 38 SuperCoach points. That rate was impossible to maintain, but still went strong throughout the whole game, ended with 26 touches, 6 tackles and 9 clearances for 124 points. Led the Blues mids for CBAs with over 80%, so the role is there. He's had a history of scoring well when playing that inside mid role. Will Walsh's role hinder him? Or not role, his return hinder him? That's probably a question for Blues fans. I think it probably affects Carroll more. If you think he can be a keeper, go for it. His bye's now out of the way, but for most, I think we just let him pass through the keeper because we really want to focus on getting guaranteed primos into those mid-slots now. He did look good, though. Mr. Ollie Wines. An okay start to the game in the first half with decent points per minute. At half-time, he had the second lowest time on ground for Port, though, only behind Frankie Evans. Still close to 50 points, as I mentioned, though. 8 minutes into the third, had a quick 26 points that he added to the total. Had a snap for goal from 30, which would have put him on 100 points with about 5 minutes to go. Didn't kick truly, so that one hurt, but no complaints at all with a 42-point quarter. I thought, here we go, I was hitting the roof. Unfortunately, he didn't add much after that and ended with a mid-90s score again. And some late news has come through, and you wouldn't believe it. He's out this week with a hammy, so now most likely a sell. The SuperCoach gods are absolutely smashing me this year. I said in my round review, I'm just going to hold for now. He's not an absolute disaster, just chugging along. 95 to 100s are okay, hoping for a spike game, but they reckon it might only be 1 week, but really a 1 week hammy, I'm just not going there. It's way too risky to hold for a week, and he's just such an average pick. I'm now forced to move him on, so a real spew for me. I should have got rid of him instead of Nick Martin. Hindsight is a wonderful, wonderful thing. I was focusing on his bye. Oh, man. It is what it is, but at this stage, I've got the treading water symbol there. That probably just goes to a straight sell now. Super unfortunate. And Jordan De Goey, I've only got him here just in case you're in the market for a cheap M9. Not right now, but he'll be dirt cheap after the buy. So just one to keep a watch on. An average of only 58 for the season so far. Super disappointing for the few people that started him, but his price will reflect that with a break-even of almost 160. Keep a watch on him for now, as he's really got the chance to bounce back to some sort of relevance if he turns things around quickly. But I really am talking about a bit of a luxury M9 position at the moment. And you can also see down the bottom there, before we go to the next slide, this is presented by Uncle T's Toys. My man, Tony B, is an absolute legend. So if you collect vintage action figures, even a few footy cards here and there, then head over to Uncle T's on Facebook. A legendary bloke, a wonderful human, and he will give you the best prices out there. Time to jump down to the midfielders under 250k. At the top, we've got Riley Sanders. Not a lot to say. Most people own him. Just enjoy watching him score decently for us on field. Make money at the same time. Potential for 4 DPP after round 6. if all things go to plan, that would come in pretty handy. The next man, Jai Clark, started on the bench and then came on for the first midfield rotation. Was a frustrating watch. Was just an observer more than anything, hoping the ball would get out to him. I'd like to see some more aggression in order to win the ball, just didn't get enough of it. Finally gets a loose ball, gets tackled straight away. As a young man still building strength, trying to tackle Newcomb, just couldn't get there, couldn't get a hand on. Lacks that core strength at the moment, but we know that that will build. Only 57% TOG in the first. Did start in the first CBA in the second though, and his intent was much better. Found the pill, used it well. Second CBA that quarter, lovely clearance and pass to Cameron, who kicked the goal. It was a really nice assist. Then a 15-second period, Clark delivers a lovely ball to Close, who drops a chest mark, then is about to get it back, and Dempsey comes in front of him, cuts him off, but ended up with 7 touches, 4 contested, and a tackle. That was a 30-point quarter. Or I thought, no idea why, and someone may be able to enlighten me, but he'll scale down 6 points to 31. He was on 37. I was spewing, but it is what it is. Then next quarter had a nice tap to advantage in the third, which is always good for bonus SuperCoach points. Another decent quarter. Took a mark about 15 metres out from goal, but Cameron gave away the free kick. Spewing again. I say spewing a lot when I'm talking about some of my players. Anyway, I've rambled on. So 68 points was a decent return, and good to have his biggest score in his cycle for the next two. Halfway through the first, Jack Carroll was on -3 points, with the only thing to his name, a 1 in the Muppet column on Fan Footy. Finally, gets loose ball with about 6 minutes to go on the first. That possession was a goal assist to Cheryl, which was nice. Then had a big second quarter, made up for his quiet start, hit the scoreboard. Old mate Fisher gifted him a goal and ended up with 65 points from 6 touches. A solid enough game and doing what he needs to do. His job security looks fine until Walsh comes back, but I feel that he's only, say, a poor game away or 2 maybe from being relegated due to Carlton's depth. In saying that, if he continues to perform well, then I expect him to keep his spot in the side. Well done if you jumped on. He'll continue to make some nice coin. Jeremy Sharp was only on 26 points at halftime. A lot of these rookies had quiet starts. Yes, another one though that I don't own. The quiet start didn't really continue on. He did well. 71 points from 15 touches to Midas Bay as a non-owner. Well done if you started him or traded him in last week. It looks good, as expected. Can go in and out of the game, but seems to have enough impact to keep the SuperCoach scoring ticking over. Will be a decent moneymaker, and to have that solid score of 70 plus in his cycle for the next 2, that will ensure that his price continues to tick over. So, yeah, well done if you jumped on. Yeah, pretty shattered that I don't have him at this stage, but not the worst miss we've ever seen in the world. Jacob Ware, bit of a pod rookie, not much to say as he didn't play due to the bye last week. Go there if you please, but he's already had the 1 rise. And Sam Berry isn't likely to even get a game, so feel free to move him on. Say goodbye. If he's named, you can bench him for a week, enjoy a small rise, and then move him on after that. Have a look at team sheets this week, but as an owner myself, I do not hold basically any hope at all for a return anytime soon. On to the rucks, and Tristan Sherry. I know a few coaches have dumped Grundy for him this week, and they'd be feeling okay, I suppose. 91 points from 32 hitouts, 11 contested possessions, 10 clearances, 7 Muppets, so which did hamper his score. The week to trade down was last week, and due to his price rise, I think you just look elsewhere from now on, unless you really need to save some coin. Speaking about that man, Brodie Grundy, a maligned pick so far in 2024, and after his performance on the weekend against the Tigers, we may now have a little more hope. Started off the game pretty well for 29 points in the first, nothing spectacular, but good to see him banking some early SuperCoach points. Another consistent second quarter, almost clunking a nice mark up forward. Finish a half with 56 points, which I was really happy with. The good thing was that the scoring was fine without doing anything special. I think that's always a positive. But then another good half, finishing on 114 points for the game. Also picked up 23 possessions, which was great. Now he's coming up against a West Coast side and has the chance to make us some money before we, or even if we now, look to flip. If he does go 130 plus, it may actually be hard to say goodbye to him. But if he punches out, say, a sub 100 or even a low 100 score against the lowly Eagles, then the decision to move him on will be a lot easier. So maybe say goodbye to him at the bye. But again, with a monster score in his system this week, it may even be tempting just to hold for a little while. Maxi Gorn, an absolute monster and officially a must-have now. You've got to say that. Killing non-owners and destroying seasons. 177 points from 20 touches and a massive 50 hit-outs. Kicked a goal as well. Pure domination in every sense of the word. My boy Spilsy went with him as a high-ceiling pod VC this week. So kudos to you, brother. He only went at 55% efficiency as well. So if that gets closer to, say, the 75 mark, then a 200 was on the cards here. You are paying a high price now, but he's hurting you more and more each week with those monsters in his system. He is a bad, bad man. A terrible, terrible anti-pod. Tim English versus West Coast. That was always going to be a very scary matchup for non-owners. I was expecting a 150, but surprisingly, only the 124. His CBA rate was right on 70%, but he did kick 2 goals, which was a bonus. Still looking like a top 2 ruck along with Gorn, and a popular play, as we just mentioned, may be to trade him in for Grundy at his bye. But if you made the trade this week, you're only up by 10 points, but clearly, yeah, an R1 to 3 absolute worst case scenario, I think. Big Kizza had the bye last week, so see how he goes this week, but we'll have to do a lot to keep up with the top 2 to 3 rucks. Darcy Cameron made me look silly the week before when I wrote him off as a pick, but I feel vindicated now. He scored a paltry 18 SuperCoach points. That'll certainly hurt his 2.9% of owners. And Rowan Marshall, a poor game from the big man, and if you went the pod move, selected him over Gorn, you'd be slapping yourself now. Don't be too disappointed though. Look, we know that he's got that score of 79 in his system. He's sure to go down. Amazingly, and this is a positive for owners, he did have 14 Muppets. 14, and only went at 50% efficiency. So he'll definitely clean that up. Should be right up there in the mix for that top 3 average. One to watch for now as non-owners, and we'll certainly jump on if he becomes cheap enough. But owners, don't panic too much. It was that efficiency and those Muppets that really let him down this week. On to the forwards, 500k plus, only 4 names on the board this week. Dogger didn't have much of an impact on this game, but got his hands on the bit. Rod gave him a bit of a hiding in the hit-outs, basically doubling him there, but Dogger picked up 16 more touches. So, in my opinion, I think he won the battle. Didn't really seem to click into 4th gear at any stage. A high 90 score isn't bad, but he did leave a triple figure score on the table. A shocking kick for goal in the 3rd. Came off the side of his boot, out in the full. There's a big point turnaround just there. He went close to 100% disposal efficiency last week, but a bit of a different story this week. All in all, I'm a very happy owner, but as a non-owner, I would say that the ship has sailed. And some late news to add. It seems like Shrek may be back in line, and Shrek, for those that haven't been watching the stocky for the last couple of years, is Sean Darcy. He may be back in line for a return against Port, so that would also put me off from trading him in even more. Sarai Zakini, I've officially knighted him now. Started off the game on fire with 9 touches. Almost had a Mark of the Year attempt early in the 2nd. Bit of an awkward fall. A little bit worried, but got up fine. He would have kicked the goal if he had have marked it too. That would have been some massive points there as well. Then literally got stuck on the bench for 8 minutes straight. Just couldn't get back on. Was pacing up and down the boundary line. Just like an animal. He was a beast. He just wanted to get back on and get into the action. When he did come on, almost gets a clearance, not long after, snaps a ripping goal to put the Bloods in front. Ended up with 68 points in the first half. He did drop an easy chest mark, but recovered for a nice little left foot kick. Apart from a couple of things, it was so clean. Then goes even bigger in the second half to deliver his best score of the season with a 148. Absolutely huge. A must-have, non-negotiable at this point. A captaincy option this week. A really fun player to own. You could say it's been an absolute dream. Sammy Flanders with a 118 average seems close to a must-have forward as well. The buy's come and gone, so he's absolutely right for the picking and will most likely come into my side this week. May not score as well in losses, which is something to look at. May not score as well during away games, but right in there with the midfield rotation. Even though we had the lowest rate of the year against the Dogs at 39%, he's a natural footballer who can find the pill. They've got a tight rotation there at the Suns anyway. Talent to burn, and I think he's someone that will sit nicely in our forward line just for the rest of the year. Even though he's already had the one price rise, I still think he's more than fine to jump on this week, and I actually do recommend him as a trade-in option. Think almost a lock for a top 4 forward average. And Charlie Curnow dominated this game along with his mate Harry, but key forwards are roller coasters, and with other options available, I wouldn't be going there, but 4 goals for 122 points was a great game, albeit against some pretty lowly opposition. On to the forwards, 250 to 500k, certainly a few names to talk about here. At the top, we have Max King. After sitting out last week due to suspension, had a red hot start, and I love the alteration to his role. Allows him to come up the ground more, get involved in scoring chains rather than just being at the end of them. 115 and 110 against the Pies and the Cats is good, but as a key forward, can he keep it up? If you think so, go for it, but I'm always wary of these blokes and see him as more of a quick flip than a keeper, which rules him out for me. But don't let me talk you out of him if he does tickle your fancy. Maybe let me talk you into this man, Tom Powell. He was the talk of the town last week. I was really impressed with him. Seems like a big win as a trade-in. A couple of fumbly moments, but all in all very solid. The role was there, which was the most important thing. An equal game-high CBA rate with LDU at 89%. Got scored well in the first quarter, but for some reason I feel he was ripped off a little bit by Champion Data in the second, but swings and roundabouts, it all evens out. A few notes and highlights. Received a gift from McGovern early in the third, just kicked it directly to him from a kick-in. Power kicked the easy goal and was quickly up to 60 points. Did see him sort of loping around a little when running through the middle of the ground, so not sure if that's a fitness thing or just his style. End up on 79 points and 39 that quarter, so not too bad. Could have got past magical 95 points, which was just a personal prediction for me, but wasted that opportunity late and last with a direct kick to a Carlton player. Pretty bad turnover there, but after being on 79 at three-quarter time, 92 points at the end of the day from 29 touches and a goal is a pretty good return for a bloke who I paid up just over 300k for last week. I still think there's one more week to get him before that ship has completely sailed for value. In this role with our below par forward options, he's looking like a keeper for mine, so great value at the price if you are a believer as well. But if you don't share the same, I suppose, positivity about this pick, then feel free to skip him. Certainly not a must-have, but a player that I really like. Cam McKenzie, a nice early goal off 1-2 with Warple. That was the Hawks' first for the game, then kicked their third goal in the second quarter. And he was on close to 50 points. A bit quieter though in the second half, only finishing on 84. When you say only, still a decent outing from him, but probably not enough for us to trade him in. But he'll make a little bit more coin if you are one of his few owners. Harry Mackay, however you say it, I'd booked this trade in a couple of weeks ago, but decided to make the aggressive play. Ran out of patience, went with Hogan instead, and how spewing am I? Because this was a perfect play. We were expecting a decent score. He delivered. A few lucky things early. I think he was lucky to get a deliberate free from Pink. Should have been Akers. Got that free. Then gets a 50-metre penalty. Misses a goal. And this is being very picky because he was enormous. You know, kicked his first after a holding free. It was against Core, but again, another free kick there. Then just started dominating up the ground a little bit more, contested intercepts. It was just killing me, particularly when I booked in this move. Even looked decent chopping out in the ruck. My man Catter would have been onto him too, only if it wasn't for Darcy Wilson spudding it up the week before. But that's a different story. Shout out to you, Catter, absolute legend of the community. At the end of the game, Harry finished with 5 goals, 10 marks for 137 points. He went up almost 70k. Now has a break-even of 19, a 130, a 112, and a 137 to open the season is elite. And a massive congrats to those that actually went there. If only I could have been a little bit more patient, shown some discipline, gone through with this myself instead of going early on Hogan. Dang it, I would have been in such a good spot. James Jordan has had a pattern of starting off slow. That continued in this game with only 8 touches for 23 points in the first half. The big concern here was the fact that he hadn't laid a single tackle, and he needs to lay tackles to raise his floor. I was hoping for a 50-point second half, but didn't eventuate. His scoring did pick up as expected, finishing on 65, but not quite enough, particularly in the best 18 rounds, where for many, his score wouldn't have actually counted. A few are now looking to move him on, but what I would say is he does have a bit more coin to make and plays West Coast this week, which is obviously the best matchup possible. Personally, I'm holding this week, possibly looking to move him on during the bye. If he spuds it up this week, he's absolutely gone. But if he can pull, say, a 90 plus, then that cash gen gets going again, and we'll have a tougher decision to make next week anyway. Fife just chugging along, but after his round 1 ton, it seems like that may be a little bit of a false reading on him. Started off with an unlucky deliberate, just a mongrel kick. That was the only kick out of his 7 touches in the first, but still 7 touches, that's okay. Then his first kick in the second came off his shin, went directly to a Crows player. We know he's handball happy, and I thought at one stage, well, maybe that's what he should stick to. 13 touches, 9 of which were contested, which was the most out of any player for 40 points in the first half. Had 77% tog, but then slowed up, spent a lot of time in the pine, particularly in the fourth, to score another 69, identical to the week before. It's just not enough. It's no disaster, but he really needs a boost score this week to keep some cash gen going. A play I'm personally looking at is getting him up to Flanders this week. It all depends on your personal situation. I've probably got other players that I'll be looking to get out, but that's certainly an option. Look, they've both made, and this is Fife and Flanders, they've both made roughly the same coin, I think, and I know that one will be a season-long keeper. Something to consider. You could really go either way with Fife at the moment. It was an up-and-down day for Fisher, mainly down. Looked nothing like what he did last week, and all of a sudden the Fisher traders feel like they're on the winning side again after booting him. People that held Fisher were bragging a little bit last week, but a little bit quieter this week. As I said, good and bad. Had a kick in, took 2 bounces to gain some nice meterage. Looked really good, but then turns it straight over. Did lay a good tackle on Chera, which should have been rewarded, but didn't receive the free. Just little things like that. Unlucky at times. Did finish on 70 points. It is always tough coming out against your old mob. And on a side note, couldn't believe that some Blues fans are booing him. It's like, come on, guys. But anyway, with the Fisher selection, you could just keep for now and wait to upgrade, say, to a Flanders if you missed him. It's up to you what you do, but with a break-even of 47, I don't think that he loses coin, but at the same time, I don't think he's going to be a player that's going to generate a lot of extra coin for you as well. So, yeah, do what you want to do with Zachy Fisher. Oh, the next man. The biggest highlight from Jack Billings this week was a check side from 20 to 25 out that did make the distance. That summed up his performance. Playing as wide as you can get on that fat side of the wing, getting nowhere near the football. And I'd put out a missing persons report at halftime on X because he was nowhere to be found. What a trap he was with that 119. I wouldn't feel as bad if I had have started him, but the fact that I traded him in just really frustrates me. The first thing I did when SuperCoach opened was trade this spud out. I just wanted to see the back of him because he really fooled me, and I feel bad for recommending him as a trading option not long ago. Apologies for that. Looks like I was wrong, but time to rectify this decision. Move on. 42 points from 8 possessions and subbed out is certainly enough for me just to say goodbye, Jack. See you later, son. On the road, Jack. Bolton had a red-hot start with 8 touches and a goal in the first. Continued on his good run. Had a 70-point first half. A bit of showtime shy in the last, kicking a lovely goal to extend the Tigers' small lead. Ended up on 119. 2 goals, 25 touches, 13 of those contested as well. we all know what Bolton's like, the absolute roller coaster type pick. And this was one of those weeks where he just puts his best foot forward. Still one I would be too scared to select, though. We've just got better options, safer options. And Dane Zorko is really enjoying the roll-off half-back, an extremely damaging footballer when on, but the main issue is age and durability. At his price, it's such a risk, not denying his scoring potential, but there's also no denying that he could go down at any minute. And I hate saying it as line supporter, but you have to be realistic. Averaging 103 with a break-even of 79 sounds okay, but you would need balls of steel to go there. I do have the old man symbol for Zorks. No disrespect, but it's reality. It is what it is. And we will finish off with the forwards under 250k. I've actually got a couple of slides to go with here, so thank you very much for sticking with me so far. And the man up the top, Sam Darcy, should be the most traded in player this week. A son of a former gun, looks unreal in his first outing. Not as good last week, but still solid. There are two major concerns. One, the Bevo factor. We simply can't trust the man. He could break Darcy very easily, and who knows what the crazy man will do. And secondly, Rory Lobb has been smashing the twos, did on the weekend, and kicked 5 snags in the VFL. I said last week that Darcy was the future, but with Lobb playing well, a change could be in store at any time. I just can't predict it. If he's named this week, he's my number one option, and I'll be jumping on board for sure. A break-even of negative 92 puts him as basically a must-have in my books. Harvey Thomas, a low break-even after his breakout 100 in the game before the bye. The ship has sailed for me. I don't think he can score consistently in the role, and there was evidence of that in his first 2 games, but the talented young player has worked out really well as a starting pick. Maybe a little bit lucky there, but in the short term, looking good. A lovely score to have in that cycle, and yeah, he'll continue to rise for next week or two. Catters will continue making some nice coin after some nice games against some easier opposition to start the season. So what do you say here? Just, yeah, a really solid starting selection. Buku Karmas, well, we played a ripping game on the weekend and a super pod rookie pick. Not many own him, and he was overlooked for some bigger names, but he really rewarded owners with an 80 plus score on the weekend, and now looking to rise much more rapidly than expected. In a best 18 week with many failures, he could have been the difference that, say, got you over the line in a league match, a tight league match. 18 touches at 89% and 9 marks for 82 points. That is fantastic. Geez, aren't the Dogs just blessed for big man? Harvey Gallagher, another dog. With the price rise in the system, I don't think we go there, but seems like a solid player. Chrissy Burgess, well done if you traded him in. He's been, well, a bit of a pod selection as well, hasn't he? Kudos to you, a pod rookie selection. Even if he goes below 50, he still makes over 35k this week. If he can pull out, say, a 75, that break-even will continue to be friendly next week to allow him to rise even more. I wouldn't jump on now, though. I think that the ship... Oh, has it sailed with Burgee? Oh, look, if you got confidence in him, maybe, but probably not for me. Reef, averaging 50, so not too bad, but when you see Darcy with a break-even of negative 92, it's just too hard to compete for mine. But this man, Ollie Dempsey, wow, he's been a big miss for me. Had a quiet first half, only the 7 touches for 27 points, but hit back in the second half to produce an 86. Ouch, it hurt as a non-owner. And we talked about Buku as well. If you had that combo, you'd be absolutely laughing this week. But 86 from 22 touches and half of those contested is really nice. Just looks like a player skilled, hard at the contest, decent footy IQ. It was a lovely touch on the line as well that he had to prevent a wizard goal in the last. Janeth was a big fan of him pre-season. We know his VFL numbers last year were really solid, and he's been able to transform that into good AFL form and really solidified his spot in the best 22 for sure. The question is it too late to bring him in? That's a question I think only you can answer, because, well, what do you think his future projections are going to be? How highly do you rate him? If you think he continues to punch out 80s, then the answer is yes. If you don't hold hope that he's going to continue to score well and he's got some, say, 40s to low 50s, even mid 50s coming up, then you can certainly skip. I don't think it's too late because I rate his ability, I rate his job security. So, although it hurts having to pay up this week, you could still get him in if you want to. But this is, well, I'm very firm on the fact that this is the last week to bring him in. You just won't see any value there if you wait another week. So now or never for Ollie Dempsey. But yeah, terrific player and great form so far. But the ship is sailing away. Sean Manor was omitted on the weekend, so not great signs there. Watch out when team sheets are released to see if he's named. But again, a potential sub risk, which also could be a red flag. And the last one on this slide before we finish up for the week is Tommy Berry, one you can hold just for the week, possibly get another rise and then look to flip. Next up, we've got Seth Campbell. Didn't have much impact in the first half, was a little bit better in the second to finish on 43 points. Hold for now, and then you can possibly flip on his buy. I'm going to run through these ones. Lazaro, track along well, feeling more of a safer pick now. We don't trade in, but we don't trade out. Pretty simple at the moment for Charlie. Nick Watson, known as a wizard, but some were calling him a muggle after some clangers. The poor kid hasn't been able to buy a goal lately, but did manage to get one through eventually at the price. Not really in consideration for us. I'm just going to call him the Richmond guy to avoid embarrassment when I butcher his name. Kicked his first goal on the weekend, which was an exciting moment on the bubble. Job security looks very solid with injuries that the Tigers are facing. Bargain basement price, but with scores of 26 and 39, he won't be of much value in my humble opinion. But go there if you want. Lafou. Nah, I shouldn't have even tried. I butchered it. Alex Sexton, now, he's had a bit of a shocker in his last game against the Dogs. Back to that game very, very quickly. He was quiet in the first, only 3 kicks and a mark. Shocking turnover in the third, got dumped by Vandermeer. Then Vandermeer gave him a bit of a tap on the head, and then he gave away a 50. It was the other way around. It was Sexton, wasn't it, that tapped Vandermeer on the head and gave away that 50. Just a score killer, but Vandermeer should have got done for staging, to be honest. Weak as water. When Atkins was subbed on for long, I think that was in the third, Sexton was actually moved forward for a while, which was a big concern. But this may have been because Atkins isn't really a forward, so the magnet shifted. From memory, Lukosius was also shifted around, but definitely something to monitor going forward. Has had 1 kick in each of his games, so a very small bonus there. I'd love to see more, but I'm holding for now, as I think he's got a big score in him if he continues to play off half back. Hopefully it comes soon, but again, if you want to trade him out this week, it's still okay, particularly for bringing someone like a Darcy in. You're making money, you're going to make some more rapid money, so that could be a play if you want to go there. Darcy Wilson, we've got to talk about him because a very low game on the disposal chart and a putrid 25 that went nowhere near being fieldable for a best 18 score. Now, with that in his system, he's officially a slow burn. He really needs a spike gain soon for his cash gen. Nothing like the final preseason game where he looks sublime, but in saying that, I think the coach would still be happy. One thing we know is that Ross Lyon loves players that can run, and with his sprint efforts and just his overall running ability and the efforts that he puts in, that in itself may allow him to hold his position in the side. I think he's a hold for now, but with another low game this week, his break-even will not be overly friendly, and we'll be seriously talking about close to a must-trade. Harley Reid, the second last man on the list, everyone's got him, but he's getting slightly concerning with his lack of scoring. Some may look to move him on soon, which is fine, because without a spike score of, say, an 80, he's burning slowly and not providing much value on field either. We're all suffering, but it may actually be a pod move to trade him out if you don't think he improves. If he does, though, it may sting slightly, but how much can it really hurt? I'm not too sure. And the last man on the list for this week is Zane Dersma. Didn't really get near it in his last game. Should have received a high free on the goal line early, but not paid. And that pretty much summed up his day from there. 7 touches for 29 points. This is what I said pre-season. He's a super talented player. Will pop up for some good matches, but realistically for the price, he's a first-year forward for North, and low scores like this have to be expected. So that's it for now, guys. All the best of luck with your trade-ins and your trade-outs for this week. and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, bye.